It's always so hard for me to tell people what my movies are about, as you can imagine. Um, well, Mona Lisa is, I think it's a fantasy adventure set in a modern day New Orleans, but it's a kind of psychedelic, I think, experiential type of adventure. It's about a girl who's been locked up in a padded cell in an institution in a catatonic state for 10 years. And a blood moon rises and wakes her up. And with waking up, and she has a strange supernatural ability. And because of that, she can be dangerous. And she wakes up and she wants to escape. She wants to break out of this asylum and rejoin civilization, which is, of course, a very mad, mad place. New Orleans is a hedonistic, chaotic, deranged in many ways city. So that is modern civilization. And then, you know, she goes barefoot into town. And it's kind of one long winding adventure of one night into day into night of all the different people she's going to meet and encounter, and whether they're friend or foe. But really, I think that the movie ends up being about friendship and how special and rare that is. I feel like I always identify with all of the characters, and I don't really think in terms of protagonists and antagonists in the way that most people do. I think the biggest antagonist in most of my films is the system, is the world, because the system forces us into a certain place, forces us to see people in a certain way or not see people in a certain way. The system sometimes doesn't allow us to be who we are, and it imposes restrictions um, that ultimately affect how we find belonging. I think everybody wants to find belonging in my films in some way. And the world and the situation surrounding them often stops them from being able to do that. She's locked up in an institution and she wants to get out, but they want to put her away. And so I certainly identify with Mona Lisa. I think she's an outsider and she's kind of able to judge everybody based on their actions, go towards her fascinations, but nobody can fuck with her because she's always in control. And I think that's the ultimate fantasy. You know, if you ask yourself, like, if I was a superhero, what would be my power? I don't think there's a better one than what she has, because she's able to just always be fearless. I definitely have always felt somewhat, to some degree, outside of group think and tribal kind of behavior of society. I mean, it can take any form. It's like, even if it's in school or in a country, in a political way, or in social settings. It's curious, but always. I think that my feeling of connection comes from very intimate, specific moments in situations and people. I don't feel comforted by the larger organization of group think. And definitely, I mean, Iranian, you know, born in England, came to America, and in America went from Florida to California. These are all really, really different worlds. Each one was alien, more alien than the next. So I think like for a child, you're adapting. It's an adaptive state. We all do that, but like, I never really saw any of them as they all seem to be passing. The only consistent world that I belong to is the world of my own perception and the world of my own individual position. So that is a place that is not foreign to me, but even in my own world, it's a constantly changing thing. So yes, that's a very, I think, a psychedelic answer to say, yes, I've always felt the individual over the group in my own life. So I think that my films definitely take that position. I'm so glad you feel that way. That's a wonderful compliment, I think, but because for me, I do hope for that. I think it's how I see people as, I think the problem with how most people use judgment and categorization is that you very quickly decide you know everything about somebody, and put them into a category, and nobody is like that. If you get to know any single person beyond that first immediate impression, you're going to learn so many more things, so much about who they are and how they came to be there. And there will be something in what you learn that will connect you and make you understand them more. And I think there's a lot of characters in the world of really any of my films, and all of them I see as the main character of their own movie, because that is how we are as people. We are all the main character of our own movie in life. So sometimes our movies overlap and we get to interact with these other people, but everybody is at the center of their own experience. So I come at, and when I'm making a movie, I come at each character, I work with each actor from that position where for, you know, from Bonnie, that's Bonnie's world, her reality. For Charlie, that's his world and his reality. Fuzz, Harold, everybody, even the receptionist in the institution has his own kind of thing that he's doing. So I think that there's more to gain out of seeing people that way. I think that we're becoming faster and faster to just judge and catalog people. And yes, the Bad Batch certainly, it was all about that. It's like these two groups pushing so hard away from each other. You know, we believe this way and we believe this way. There's no reconciling such, you know, disconnection. So it's like, I think that's the frustration of humanity. Yeah, you often ask yourself, like, where would I want to be? In that side where I'm guaranteed safety and living in behind the wall and kind of numbing myself to thinking and believing these ideologies somebody's telling me, or go to the other side where it's violent, ruthless survival, and that's, you know, let's be the strong as we can, and just some people have to be the victims for the group to be stronger. It's like they both kind of, yeah, they both have their advantages and disadvantages, and it's like, you know, the hermit had to figure it out there in the middle somewhere. But to be able to seek your own answer, it's like if you're born into one place or the other, well, that's what you're born into. That's what you're told is how it is, and you accept that. But can you just reject what you inherited? Reject it and take the risk and seek your own version of freedom. I think that as an you know, immigrating family coming to America and being aware, I'm so aware of how beautiful freedom is. It's just the quest for freedom, the asking what freedom is, defining what freedom is, rejecting ideas of what you don't think it is. It's so important. It's the deepest core, I think, of how I feel, and also like all of my films, is a thirst for freedom. And, you know, yeah, it means, oftentimes it means forgetting what you know and learning something again, and not trusting everything as it is, and kind of reforming your own pathways. And you can fail at it, and then, you know, and then something that makes you feel free now may become a prison later. It's like it's a constant, it's constant work. But I think, I mean, it can also be fun. It doesn't have to be like these huge ideologies, which can sometimes overwhelm you about freedom. It can be as simple as what you wear. One of the things about Mona Lisa, and I think it's really poignant for specifically for girls, is she constantly changes physical form. She's, at one moment she's a monster, the next moment she's like a child, at the next moment she's like a cute, cool girl, and it allows her to have different experiences. And we, with girls, we so quickly judge by the cover, by the exterior, superficial kind of, and be able to change that. It's great fun. It's like, go dress like a complete, you know, dress completely different for one day, and you experience the world completely different. It seems like a trivial thing, but it's actually really kind of major. Well, they're two very different things. For Mona, I think you see it through the whole movie. It's like, but in that scene with the stoners, I mean, it's like, I just think even as she goes, every single person, you really don't know if are they going to be nice, or are they not going to be nice. Like, it's 50-50. You can't be certain about anybody in a way. I think with the stoners, I think American audiences will expect them to be nice.
Oh, okay.
Because I think in American kind of cinema canon, that type of character, it's like a dazed and confused kind of teenage stoner, listening to heavy metal. Like, they're not usually menacing. They're smoking weed, you know, they're not like, you know, I don't know. It's like, I feel like that most people will wonder if she's going to do something to them rather than if they're going to do something to her, because when she comes out of that institution, you know what she can do. So it's like, oh, is she going to do it again? You know, like, or, but I think it's great if you were worried for her. Like, that's the fun of the whole thing, is like, you're worried for everybody. You should be, really. I mean, the world is complicated. Everybody's complicated. You don't know who's going to do what to who from one moment to the next. With Bonnie, I think it's a different thing. I think Bonnie is stuck. If you're a dancer in a dingy kind of strip club like they have in New Orleans, there's a lot of strip clubs on Bourbon Street. It's like a red light district, and it's a city that's like populated by college tourism. So it's just constantly young college students coming from everywhere, getting drunk and going to Bourbon Street. And that's like her routine. She's locked into this specific world, and how to kind of, you know, like, thrive within those sexual politics for strippers, for dancers. It's like, and I spent a lot of time in those strip clubs, and actually with a lot of dancers in New Orleans. And it's like, it's not like the high-end, high-caliber strip club like you see in Vegas or you might see in some movies. These are like, it's very realistically like how it is in the movie. It's kind of a dingy place. They don't make a lot of money. They're working really hard for empty rooms. And then they try to sell lap dances. And then, you know, if you don't get tipped well, because they have to pay for their time to dance. So like the girls pay money to the club to have 3 hours to dance there, for example.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, they don't get to keep all of their money. They have to pay the club some money. So if they don't make money in tips, they don't really make money for working that night. So it can be really disappointing some nights. And a lot of people can be really cheap in their tipping. And I think like, she's a little bit at her limit of being fed up with her job. I mean, if you see Bonnie, she's really getting her ass kicked from the beginning to the end of the movie.
Mm.
You know, in some way, someone's fucking with her
Mm-hmm.
constantly. So the thing I like about her is she's constantly moving forward. She doesn't sit, complain or look for a hero or spend too much time. She just continues. Okay, what am I going to do next? How am I going to deal with this? So, yeah, I quite admire Bonnie's resilience. She's a fun character. See, I love that though, because it actually proves the point of the movie, which is don't judge a book by its cover.
Yes.
You don't know who people are. Maybe they're not. I think the same is true for Fuzz. I mean, most people are tense at first when they see Fez. And of course, he ends up showing you that he's completely not what you expect. So yeah, I think that's really cool that in German audiences, they might be like, oh, these guys, what are they gonna do? You know,
Yes.
that's cool. He gives her his shoes, you know, it's like, it's quite cool. I think like on being asked the question, I can kind of, obviously the first film, she's a vampire. So there's a very specific connection, a technical connection. She lives by night. She's only sees the world by night. But it is by night that the people, you know, crawl out of the cracks of people that are, you don't really see during the day, transient people and marginalized people, you know, junkies, drug addicts, prostitutes, pimps. These people operate by night and they are characters in that world. So it's just like a whole different landscape, like a whole different universe of a reality shift at night. From what it is by day. And then New Orleans is very much a city like that. From Thursday afternoon until Monday, I think in a way it's like Berlin in like, you know what I mean? Like Berlin has this whole other living entity, It's like almost like a civilization of like techno zombies who like go where they're going at certain hours that are completely on a different plane simultaneously with the day people. So like, because I lived in Berlin for 5 months in 2012. But yeah, so New Orleans is a city like that. And I think I've just had so many strange and mundane and fun, weird encounters and evenings and trips there. But then the thing, if you spend longer there and you start to actually see because it's a culture that lives around visitors coming and going, right? But they don't live there. And the people that live there, once you spend a little bit of time and you see, because it's a really ancient, in a way, it has a really ancient feeling. New Orleans, it's the swamp. The swamp has a prehistoric feeling. These trees are hundreds of years old and gigantic, these oak trees, and they're amazing. Like, beautiful prehistoric energy is in that place. And yeah, I definitely have a romantic feeling to it. But then, like, you know, whenever you're on Bourbon Street where everyone's getting drunk and doing all this stuff and going to the strip clubs, it's like these cops that live there, they're dealing with drunk people throwing up on the street every single day. And like, these dancers are dealing with these drunk college boys every single day. And, you know, imagine being a 10-year-old kid growing up in that world. And like, you know, it's like, but there's whole other parts of New Orleans, you know, that's, yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's a strange and beautiful place. I forgot the question now, but it was about night. It was about nighttime, and does it have a fondness to me? And I think, yeah, I think the freaks come out at night. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Oh, the Bad Batch is like, you know, there is something. The Bad Batch was about modern day, a psychedelic metaphor for modern day America, modern day democracy imploding, like caving in on itself and becoming dysfunctional. The American dream kind of cracking. And that's very much true. I feel as more has time made that film in 2015, and it's even more accurate now. It's the funny thing about like the 90s, the 80s, it's like, it's still residual if you leave the big cities. America is a really big country. And if you leave the big cities that have a distinct, more modern kind of feeling, and if you go to the smaller rural parts of the country, it still does feel like it's 3 or 4 decades back. So it's like you could see the ruins of it. Just doesn't catch up. Things don't catch up as fast in the smaller places. It takes more time. And so, yeah, I think there's a hint of that in there. But New Orleans is very much like what, to me, Mona Lisa is a really full and complete feeling of what modern day New Orleans is like what it's like to me. And I think it's the most New Orleans movie ever made. I don't think anybody, I've seen all the movies with New Orleans that were shot in New Orleans, which there's not that many, which is strange because it's a city that's so distinct to me, like New York or Paris or, you know, San Francisco. It's so distinct. Like, why don't more people shoot here to show it? Because it's nowhere is like New Orleans or like Amsterdam. It's like there's nowhere like, certain cities are just a character.